Now, the actual rise of the Islam, if we're talking about the alliances and the charters that have been created in the Middle East, is an interesting issue. In the past, we used to simplistically define them as being something divided as the radical axis and the sort of the more moderate one. These axes don't actually appear anymore. They're not there anymore. And there are two greater camps, the Shiite and the Sunni. And so you've got the Muslim Brotherhood in one of them and the others on the other side. And these are the new forces of the Middle East. And based on that, it's very easy to understand various political phenomena and agreements and coalitions and various happenings that are happening between the various bodies. The fact that Hamas in the Gaza Strip is being strengthened by Iran, of course, is a ramification of what that phenomenon that I was speaking about. It wants to hold it. No, on the contrary, it's not actually becoming closer. It's distancing itself. So they're now looking at Egypt, and they're looking at the Sunni countries. They're looking at the others, if it's the countries around. Now, what's happening in the Yemen through the Iranians in order to ensure and preserve that axis? Now, there's a tension between Jordan and Egypt. They're frightened that they're actually instigating what's happening in Jordan, and they're frightened that they're really inciting all the flames. And also in the Gulf states, the tension between the Emirates and Egypt, for example. And I could continue with Bahrain and expanding on other things as well, but I won't here. An additional differentiation that I would like to mention here is that for the first time for years in the Middle East, there are four superpowers. Perhaps we'll formulate it differently. The four superpowers of the Middle East are taking over because of a religious leadership. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, and Iran. You cannot ignore that perspective through which lens they actually examine their reality. An additional issue which is very important in the Israeli-Arab conflict is connected to the transit from a paradigm, a national paradigm, to something that is a more religious paradigm. In other words, leaders in the public examine and explore the conflict through more religious lenses than they did in the past. From that point of view, I'm talking about, in addition to issues of frontiers and borders that were always a dominant issue, and they always had a specific stratum of a religious element, but here this belief, this faith that is the foundation of the fact that Israel is such a foreign body in that area and an alien and all that. I mean, that is extremely important because of the ramifications that could actually last for many years. If we're talking about the textbooks in the schools and what the negotiation table is going to look like in a few years in the future. So after I've said that, we have to actually say a specific reservation. We're not talking about monolithic blocks, that we're not saying that they're all one kind of personality. There are various schools and schools of thought and various hues and shades. There is a kind of readiness through pragmatism, through a desire to make compromises short-term, medium-term and long-term, because in the heart and the core and the pith of the most extremist and others, the state of Israel is perceived as something unacceptable in the Middle East. In other words, what is the practical significance of what I just said? That in the coming years, the difficulty will escalate from the point of view of coming to accords and normalization.
Our group, all the secular of Egypt, never threatened Israel, never said that they are going to do anything with the peace treaty. We support the peace treaty.
You support Camp David?
Of course, and we want complete peace. We don't want war. That's very clear.
And you've told the administration this?
Of course, everybody knows this, but the Hamas in Gaza are very close to the Muslim Brothers, so they could influence them to have an agreement with Israel. Of course, we are not friends, very much the same friendship or any friendship with Hamas.
What was the last question?
Israel.
Who chooses?
They choose, okay. This was very easy. They go to the parliament and they say, we want to cancel the treaty with Israel. They have 70%, they will cancel the treaty. What can the army do? The army definitely doesn't want to cancel the treaty. The army definitely will never and never wants to go to war with Israel anymore. They actually have positive sentiments, you know. And there is another fact that we can't afford to have a war with Israel because all our defense system is US based, and the US will never allow us to use it against Israel, you know. So that's, again, it's fictitious, you know, when we think that the Egyptian army will go and do that. But to answer your questions, even if they're saying today we will not cancel the treaty, we will not do that, their idea of the Islamic Khilafah includes Hamas. You know, the Murshid said, first the Murshid is the guy who said,
the supreme guide of the Brotherhood.
Yeah, the supreme guide said clearly, openly, our aim is to do finally the dream of the Islamic Khilafah. Okay, so maybe they want to turn Israel also into part of the Islamic Khilafah using Hamas or whatsoever, you know. So if you guys want to trust them, you know. But they'll give you all the nice words right now because they're not fully in power. Once they're in power, we're all in deep trouble.